Hello everyone, welcome to another Stata tutorial video. In this video I'm going to show you how to install packages in Stata, and then we're going to make some regression tables, and then I'll show you how to make a few different types of graphs in Stata. Now before we are able to make tables, we first have to download and install a package that will help us do that. Now, if you have Stata installed on your PC, this is a little bit easier because you'll generally only have to download packages one time, and then they will be there for you every time you load up Stata. However, we are running off of Citrix, so we are remotely accessing Stata. Because of that, there is one extra step that we have to do. Now, we can set it up to use all the packages that we want every time we use it, but we have to save those packages on our own computer, not on the remote computer that we're using. So first you're going to want to create a folder somewhere in your computer that will hold Stata packages. So what I've done is just make a folder called Stata Packages right inside my hard disk drive. You can name it whatever you like. Now, what we need to do is figure out what the address of this folder is. So we're going to go back into Stata, and then we'll click on the Open button. We're not actually going to open anything. We're just going to navigate through our computer into the folder that we created. So I'm going to go into my hard disk drive and find Stata Packages folder that I made, and I'm going to open that. Now, the way that we can get the address is to click on the navigation bar up here, and this will turn into the path for the folder. Now, notice that we couldn't do that in our original browser window because Stata is running on a remote computer, so it's going to have a slightly different address than we would normally use. So I'm going to copy this. Now I'm just going to back out of that. Now we need to tell Stata that we want to use this folder to store our packages. So we're going to need to type in sysdir set, and then all caps plus. Now this will assign the folder to hold packages. Now we're going to put in quotes and paste our path for our folder and hit enter. Now we're ready to install some packages. The way that we do that is to type in ssc install space and then the name of the package. If you know the name of the package, you can type this right in. Otherwise, you can type in find it, and then you can type in a function that you know is in that package, and it will be able to find it. But we're going to use ssc install for now. Now, Stata has a lot of different packages that you can find, and if you have a task that you want to do and think, well, maybe there's a package for this, then you can Google that and find out what the name of that package is and use ssc install. Now, remember that you always want to set up your folder before you start installing things. The package that we want that will help us make tables is called estout. So I'm going to type ESTOUT and run this. Now, Stata is going to take a few seconds and install the package. And as it's doing so, you can see on the left here in the folder in my computer, we see things starting to fill up this window as they get installed. All right, and now it's done. We're going to be able to use any functions that are in estout. I've loaded up the ACS dataset that I used in some of the previous videos, and we're just going to run some basic regressions. So let's say that I wanted to run the regression of wage on age. So we've seen this before. Now, we're going to run regressions that we want to save and put in our table, then we need to use the command eststo, E-S-T-S-T-O, colon, and then we simply type in the regression that we want to run. And Stata will now confirm at the bottom of my regression table that this was stored as regression number 1. I'm going to run another regression. We'll run a regression of wage on age, but this time we're going to limit this to only Indiana residents, and we'll leave out all the Illinois residents. And this is really easy to do in Stata. We just type after the regression, if state double equals, in quotes, Indiana. And I will run this regression. And you can see now that we only used about 1,600 of the observations because we left out everybody who lives in Illinois. And that was stored as regression number 2. Now, to view the regression table, we simply type in esttab, E-S-T-T-A-B. And this will give us a table showing the first regression we ran in the first column and then the second regression that we ran in the second column. We have a lot of control over how this table will end up looking. So I'm going to show you a few different options we can use. Remember that in Stata, options always come after a comma. So you type in the command you want, and then type a comma, and then we can put in whatever we want after that. So by default, the table will always include stars that indicate the p-values. But let's say we don't want to use those, so we type in no star. Run this again, and now we get the same table with no stars. Another really useful one is we can add label. And what this will do is that it will replace some of these code words with more informative labels. So if we run this, const became constant and n became observations. By default, the table will give us the coefficient estimates and then the t-statistics in parentheses. But let's say that we, instead of the t-statistics, we wanted the standard errors. So now I would just type in SE as an option. And when we do that, instead of the t-stats in the parentheses, we get the standard errors. And we can confirm this by scrolling back up to the original regressions, and we can see that those are, in fact, the right standard errors. And then the table will update the footnote to reflect that. Let's add some more control variables into this regression. So I'm going to generate the female variable like we had before. So we'll set that to equal sex equals 2. I'll now run a regression including female as a variable. So remember to stow this and regress wage on age and female. Now we can see that this was stored as regression number 3. Now if I tab this, the table will now contain another row with the female variable. Any further regressions that I run will make use of this row in the table if female was included. Now it's all well and good to have these tables showing up in our Stata window, but we want to use these in our reports. I recommend perfecting your table in the Stata window, and then once you're ready, then we will export the table into a format that we can use. When I use stab, I usually export the tables into latex files for my slides. Most of you, though, are probably going to want to export these into Word. Before we start exporting tables, make sure you set your working directory to where you want it. So just to remind you, change working directory and then browse to the folder that you want. And I'm going to put everything in my X522 folder. Now to export into a usable Word format, we want to use stab using, and then after that you want to type the file name that you want to save your table as, including the file type. So let's call this video example table .rtf. That stands for rich text format, and that's the format that we need for Word to read this. And then after that, remember to include the options that you want. So let's go no star and label. Now it has successfully exported our table into videoexampletable.rtf. Now if you decide, well, maybe I want a fourth column, then we can do that by running one more regression. Let's say wage on age, female, if state equals Indiana. We'll make sure that worked. Okay, that looks good. Now, if I want to update my rich text file, I'll simply click this again. But if I run this, we'll have a problem because video example table already exists. And to overwrite that, we need to add another option, which is replace. Now Stata will save over our old file. Let's take a look at it. I'll open this up in Word. As you can see, we have a nice regression table right here in Word that we can copy and paste into whatever report that we're doing. You can also save these files in many other formats. For example, if I wanted to export this into one of my slide sets, I would put .tex, or if I wanted this just into a text file, I could put txt. And then I would just get a formatted table that I could open in Notepad. Notice that Stata will automatically correctly format your table to the file extension type that you requested. The last thing I want to mention about est_tab is that sometimes we stored a regression that we didn't want. To take care of this problem, we can use the command est_stow clear, and that will wipe out all of these saved regressions. So let's suppose that we didn't want this third one right here. Now I can go back and run all of the previous ones. I can run the first one, the second one, and then I'm going to go in and run the fourth one. Now if I est_tab, I just have the 3 that I've run since I cleared. That's all I have to say right now about making tables using Stata. I'll see you for the next video on making graphs. Thanks for watching.